them on Facebook, won't you?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes it bothers my mom.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. So I was looking at it, and I was like, "There's no way one man can do that by himself." I mean, Camille's got to be holding up some stuff, right?
Nope.
God Almighty, and especially on those 10-foot ones, even.
Those are 22 foot, 23 foot.
Well, you got an
8-foot.
8-foot wall and then a 10-foot wall, right?
Yeah.
But the beams are 22 feet. Hey, thanks for everybody who's joining us live. This is not the podcast. We're just cutting it up a little bit before we get started. But so we're just talking about Scott. I'm going to get into the podcast with that, talking about Scott showing off because he's a stud when it comes to studs. See what I did there?
And, he's been holding a stud for the past couple of weeks.
That's right.
I mean, just nailing them left and right.
Yeah. The only time I hold a stud is when I go to the bathroom.
Get done with that out. That all day.
Good thing that's not on the podcast. That's what the live audience gets with us. But we're going to go live here in just a second. No, I was telling you guys. Huh? We're going to run them off. We sold our other house finally. And so the inspector came, and I've done so much little stuff. I could never do what Scott does, but I've done so much little stuff. I built a backyard, outdoor kitchen with the refrigerator and the power and all that stuff. And then I redid the ceiling after the freeze. And I did something else that I was laughing with my wife about because the inspector came and they always nitpick all kinds of little stuff. And we're taking care of that. But like all the stuff that I did, he didn't even say a word. So I guess I fooled him. I was not legal. I was not, it wasn't a licensed contractor that did all that stuff. So I was like, see there, you were worried about me blowing up the house. Anyway. All right. So let's let you guys get ready to get started.
I mean, we can hang out a little bit longer, whatever.
Yeah. All right, let's get started. All right. This is Bite Me Podcast. Got a couple of grievances I need to air out here right out of the chute. I'm John Lopez. That's Captain Scott Null. That is Captain Caleb McCumber. If you're joining us on the live YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, you can see the raccoon eyes are working strong. I'm going to ask him about that in a minute. We've got your questions. If you are live with us, we will answer them. We have a segment that we lay out now for that. We understand a lot of people just listen to the podcast by subscribing at their own leisure, and we actually love that because that's how we kind of make hay. Let's put it that way. But we do appreciate everybody watching and listening live, and we really appreciate if you subscribe on iTunes, on Podbean, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, wherever you get a podcast, you can get the Bite Me podcast. Don't forget about the Bite Me page, and that's where I'm going to start here in a second. Some of the topics we're going to talk about in Otter news, I will explain. And then we're going to talk about swallowing your pride in making the call. That's what kind of ticked me off about. Hey, Steve. Steve is on the YouTube channel.
There he is.
That's what kind of ticked me off about Caleb this weekend, and I will explain. It was kind of sort of, but we'll see. When to fish a windblown shorelines. Those are questions we're getting on the Bite Me group page. Fiberglass, flesh, or metal mounts, and certainly all kinds of fishing topics, etc. So here's what I was talking about. I put it on the group page, Caleb, and I didn't take my own advice on this one. I said we're about to record this week's podcast. If anyone would like to join us with live questions and comments, et cetera, et cetera. I said Captain Scott Null is a show off, and Captain Caleb McCumber kind of ticked me off on Sunday. So Caleb, I'm going to start there because I should have I should have made the call. So Sunday, as I'm getting off the water, but you were, I found out later, you were not where I was. But Sunday, as I was getting off the water, I saw you post a couple pictures of some nice redfish And I'm like, dang it, I was struggling. I was struggling on Sunday. Finally scratched out a couple of fish, but it kind of led to this. Like, I always will text my buddies that I know are on the water or call them or whatever if I really get on some good fish or if I find some redfish in certain back lakes or whatever. And I've done that with you, even though you don't need it. I'm just trying to be a good friend.
Appreciate
it. I didn't hear anything from you, and I didn't call you, which I should have done. Say, hey man, what's going on? But it turns out you weren't even where I was fishing.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I've caught plenty of fish when you were struggling and didn't tell you whenever I was over there. So it's not completely unwarranted.
So how is it that I always text my buddies, you and anybody out there, obviously Patrick, and say, hey, they're really on right here. But how come I never get that reciprocal call?
Man, it's just, I want to, but it's unprofessional to be on my phone while I'm on the job.
That's what it is? That's what it is?
I mean, I pick up the phone to call Scott every once in a while. He doesn't answer any damn way.
So you call him, but you don't call me.
I do like how whenever he's fishing, Scott, he's got on his fishing hat and his fishing shirt, and whenever he's telling the toolman Taylor Scott, he's got his Mueller hat and his tape measure reading glasses.
He does, and
his Carhartt color shirt.
He does.
He just swapping. He's a man of many hats.
He's got a whole wardrobe of Carhartt now. There it is, right there. He's got one on right now.
Nailed it.
So then there's the other little piece of business that we've got to take care of here, and we're going to get to your comments and et cetera live here. And I certainly appreciate you guys listening to the recorded broadcast, which airs and posts on. What did you just show us? What is that? Oh, his power lock tape. Yeah,
it's not that I don't know the man or anything. I don't know Scott at all.
So we appreciate you guys subscribing and all that. But so Scott texted us some pictures of the house he's building, and I'm like, what a show off! Because there is no way, Scott. I said this before we hit the record button, but I just got to reiterate it. There is no way that you're building that house all by yourself. No way. I mean, even Camille's got to be holding up something with a broom or a stick or a ladder or something.
No. She shows up every once in a while over there and kind of walks in, peeks in, looks around, then disappears.
Make sure you're not broken.
Yeah, I guess. When she doesn't hear enough noise going on.
Is he still in one piece? How do you? I can't look. I did a lot of stuff like that with my dad, who was very much a handyman. He built an entire house for us when I was little, and we all did remodeling, and I did a lot of work. That's why I'm kind of dangerous when it comes to little add-ons and projects at my house. But come on, man, how do you? I don't see how you can do that. I mean, those are 8-10 foot walls, 24 foot beams up there.
Yep. 10 foot walls, 24 foot beams across the top of it.
Why?
When I was on the police department, I did a whole lot of that. I did a lot of remodeling jobs. I hated working those security jobs. And my schedule was such working in homicide that I never knew when the hell I was going to be able to go to a job and work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd get a scene, be out on a murder scene somewhere. So I didn't have a schedule, so I really couldn't have a crew. And so I just learned to do everything by myself, and you figure things out, man. They built the pyramids, they
lifted slaves, about 10,000 slaves.
They lifted them big old rocks.
You got some slaves stashed away over there at the backport ranch?
No, just I figure if they could figure out how to move them big old stones, I can figure out how to move a board.
Yeah.
It's actually started to be an accepted theory that the Egyptians figured out how to use harmonics and crap to levitate stuff. And if there's one person in the three of us that has done the study and read about harmonics and how to lift heavy crap, it's Scott.
I
actually have seen that myself. I read.
I watch Ancient Aliens. It's a good show.
Yeah, exactly. All right, boys. So lots of topics and lots of comments already on the live stream. But I want to start with this again, not necessarily like how to help you fishing or fishing topic per se, but our Facebook group page is getting out of control, man. I mean,
That's a gift that keeps on giving, ain't it?
It's just getting out of control. I want Caleb to reset how this whole otter nonsense started for those that have been in and out of the podcast, and certainly those that are maybe forgetful of it. But there are 3 consecutive, unless I missed one, there's at least 3 consecutive posts on the group page, Bite Me group page if you want to join, about otters and baby otters and otters doing this and that. And then I went down a rabbit hole, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But Caleb, reset that for us.
I think what I would actually like to do is I would like to challenge somebody in the community here to find a baby otter that we can feed for $1 a day. And we could have like a Bite Me group sponsored baby otter, but I want them to send us updates and stuff on the well-being and the growth of the otter that we're sponsoring. Well, I feel like this would be a thing.
Here's the thing though. Otters are mean. Like they're mean.
Terrible. They rip your face off.
They will.
That's why you're packing. No, what was that? That was like.
That's why you start blasting. Is that what he said? I just started blasting.
That was about this time last year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Then I opened the group page. I'm like, what the hell's going on? There's 3 otter posts.
There's just this otter swimming around checking out his kayak. The man pulls a gun on him and starts freaking out about how he don't come any closer, bro. I don't want any trouble, bro. And a year later, there's more otter posts on our page than there is fishing posts. I posted a video that Chris made of us fly fishing and catching multiple fish over 40 inches. And the otter video has more likes and interactions than the damn a video of monster fish on flies. I mean, this is great. I love it.
I knew that you would. But then there's this. And I came across it because you sent me down this damn rabbit hole, otter hole, whatever you want to call it. So did you see what happened last week? And I believe it was and for some reason, it was in Santa Cruz, California. All right. And of course, it made me think of Caleb. So a surfer named Nick Erickson was surfing. All right. And all of a sudden, he felt something grab his surfboard. And he thought, oh, my gosh, shark. So he kind of panicked. No, it was an otter. It was an otter that grabbed the surfboard. And I sent you guys the link and the video. And the otter started surfing in on the waves.
I mean, this is action. This is absolute action.
I'm like, the otter is surfing. It's a video. It's right there. It just happened a couple of weeks ago.
There's got to be a way to screen share this, John.
You see it? Are you looking at it?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I figured you would have this queued up already, and I wouldn't have to.
I have it on mine, but I haven't. It's playing on mine right now, but I'm not. I got so many things open right now. I'm not going to be able. I'm not
on my great big computer because Louisiana doesn't really handle that well. But I'm gonna work on this real quick. Here we go. Let's see.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So go ahead.
Talk about other stuff while I.
Well, I was going to ask Scott. I know we're not here for otters. We're here for fishing. But I was looking at this thing, and I'm like, we probably should do some sort of like public service announcement here, Scott. I feel like we're minimizing what otters can do to you when they clamp down on your with that bite of theirs. It's no joking matter. I mean, it's wild.
I've been around otters a lot. I've never really been too concerned about it.
Well, yeah, you've never been bitten then.
Yeah,
John. All right, let my screen in there, John.
All right, how do I do that? Top right.
This is riveting.
There it is. This is riveting.
You gotta be kidding me. Otter just took Bart's board.
He took that man's board away.
There it is. Wow. The otter is surfing.
No way. Dude, this is going to
be territorial, man.
All right. Enough with that otter nonsense. Hey, see what I said? Otter nonsense. Okay. All right. Let's get to the fishing topics here. Now, I was kidding around about this, but it made me think about a topic. This is not from our listeners or not here live, and I'm going to get to these questions as I mentioned live. But it did kind of lead me to think, Caleb was off the hook, even though he doesn't call me anyway, even when he would be on the hook. But Scott, I'm going to start with you. This is something that a lot of guys, women, all our listeners, you don't swallow your pride when everything looks right. It was a good Sunday, man. I did end, like I said, scratch out a couple, but I had a rough day. It's not just about moving and searching and looking for, the signs and wind and all that stuff. Sometimes we all have buddies on the water. We all have buddies that were there yesterday. We have, and all that type of stuff. You got to swallow your pride sometime. And guides do it all the time. It's a little, you got each has their own little circle of friends, circle of confidants, etc. It just swallow your pride and make that call. You don't have to ask for details and numbers, but if you want to have a better day, sometimes you just got to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we do it all the time amongst the guides. Finding tarpon on the beachfront's difficult, and the more eyes you got, and the more friends you got, the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of scatter out and look around, and you call select people in on them. And then there are some that you have in your list that you doubt when they call and say, "Man, it's acres of them. They're everywhere, and it's going off." Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. They're known to get a little excited about things. But
go ahead.
I mean, even if you're not fishing in the same area, Dean and I have done it. Like when I was guiding in Galveston, Dean and I'd be talking, and I'd say, "Yeah, I got school and fish, or I got whatever's going on." And he'd say, "Okay, about a week from now, 2 weeks from now, I'll probably have the same thing." He just knew that whatever I had going on, whatever was happening there, it would seem like it would happen about 2 weeks later where he was.
Yeah.
The tailing would start up really good. But if you're in the same Bay Area, and you're not necessarily going to go jump in on their spot or anything, but just find out, what are the fish doing? Are they on shell? Are they on mud? Are they deep? Are they shallow? Are they chasing mullet? Are they on shrimp? What's going on? What bait are you seeing? What are they active on?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that it's the same thing as like reading the internet fishing reports.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody blacks out the background. I don't care about the background. I don't want to know where you are. I just want to know what you were doing.
Yeah.
And what you were seeing.
I
And
posted
Caleb,
a picture once
go
where I
ahead.
blacked out myself and the fish, so nobody knew what I caught in that spot.
That's pretty brilliant.
I posted
that's pretty brilliant, to be honest.
I've called Scott from East Matagorda Bay several times. Just he's in Port O'Connor. I'm, "Hey, are your fish spooky? Can you get them to eat?" And a lot of the times we're having the same thing 60 miles away from each other.
Yeah, and you're in Louisiana, and you've been there a lot now, and you know it quite well. But you did have to learn it and sort of gain a new circle of confidants. And that's something that the trust has to go both ways. Like you're in my relationship on the water doesn't go both ways. I'll tell you something, but you don't tell me. That's a you problem. But
that's not both ways.
That's not both ways. No. But I'm kidding, kind of. But like the way I do it is I always undersell just how accurate, just how well I'm doing. And in other words, I wait till I catch like 3, and I know that there's something really going on before I'll text anybody, say, "Hey, nobody's here. Let's go. This is happening." And then the questions I ask, kind of to Scott's point, I don't necessarily need to know where you are. One of my main questions is, what are you throwing? How big of a bait? What color, etc.
And you really wouldn't guess what I do to not get people where they're expecting too much or overhyped about it. I mean, probably the thing I do the most is not call anybody.
You know what? I can relate to that. I'm familiar. I'm familiar with that.
No, we do have networks. I mean, every local guide, he has 3 or 4 people that's his little clique. The tournament scene has little cliques. Anybody who says I don't talk to anybody, or my favorite line is, "I learned everything on my own." That is utter and complete.
Nobody has.
No,
nobody
thank you.
has.
It didn't happen. No.
Yeah.
But you got to find people that are on the same wavelength as you are, and that you trust, and that have information that is not only reliable, but stuff that y'all are talking the same language. I have several fishermen I talk to that they'll tell me a bunch of stuff, and at the end of it, I'm more confused than whenever I started.
Right.
But like, me and Pat, we speak the same language. He can call me and in 30 seconds tell me everything I need to know about the entire system.
A lot of that, Scott, is fishing with people that you fished with before, because you kind of know, you can kind of in your mind's eye, okay, I think I know what he's doing, what he's throwing, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, you got to have that familiarity as well.
Right. And locations, if they are giving you locations, everybody's got different names for different things. It really gets screwed up sometimes. The jetty guys are terrible about it over here. I'll talk to Stephen Reed, and I have no idea where he is. I mean, I know he's on the rocks somewhere, and I'll just have to go look for his boat, because the names he has for these little spots, I just shrug my shoulders, and he goes, "Oh, you know." No, I don't know.
Maybe I do.
Let me go see if I can find your boat.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get a little timely news here, and I'm very curious, Scott. I'll start with you. I'm very curious what you guys are thinking on this, because we mentioned how cold it was last week and the week before. Have you seen the temperatures this week? I know you guys are experiencing them. Caleb's got that raccoon working on his face. This is going to be a very warm week. It has been already these first couple of days.
Yes.
And it's really going to get a lot warmer. And the good news is, Scott's in Port O'Connor, you're in Louisiana. We got listeners all up and down the coast. What is this, Scott? What is this warming? I mean, a good solid week of warming temperatures. What's that going to do?
I think it's going to confuse the hell out of some things. The fish, it's not the right time of year for it to be 72-degree water temperature. And that's what I just saw when I looked it up. Port O'Connor just showed 71.8. That shouldn't happen in February. It just really shouldn't be that warm. I mean, fish locally, they're going to move up shallow and do their thing. Bait fish are going to get more active. But, fish and all animals go by the length of daylight, and we don't have enough daylight yet for it to be this warm. It's just not working. Man, it's just going to be a matter of watching the bait and seeing what it does. I don't know if the bait's going to spawn early with the warmer water. Maybe it will. Maybe that'll kick something off. I still think we got some cold weather coming at some point, though. It's going to knock it back down.
I don't know about a hard freeze.
Every year around the fishing show, somewhere around the time of the fishing show, we get a good cold front, and it surprises everybody. Everybody thinks it's spring. This is fall spring, and then it'll knock it right back down again. And I don't like to see it get this warm this early, because then it really throws things off when that last front hits, and it knocks a chill in the water.
So you're not a big fan?
Not really. I mean, it's nice day to day. I like that. But the long haul of it, I like seeing the patterns play out. And, you learn the patterns over the years. And when it gets unusually warm or unusually cold, then your patterns aren't exactly working out, and you got to adjust for it.
What are your thoughts, Caleb? Because I get what Scott's saying, and I don't disagree, but also for me, it's all about water temps. And I don't know if we're going to get into the 20s again. Now, we might have a cold front. Hell, in April, we'll get some 40 and 50-degree days occasionally. But I think the water temps will kind of start hovering up and stay in that vicinity. But you could totally disagree with me.
We'll get another cold snap or two before we're done and moving into the summer. I think, like Scott said, we're kind of in our Texas spring right now. I was in Mansfield last Thursday fishing with Wayne Davis, and the mesquite trees were budding out down there, which is kind of a South Texas thing for winter's over. But I think we'll get some cool snaps. It was 42 degrees here Saturday morning. I froze all day long Saturday. The water temperature was 55. Yesterday, the water temperature, I think the warmest I saw it all day was 61. But, to go from real cold to real warm that fast, I'm staying about another 3 days in fishing, and I really don't know what I'm going to see over the next 3 days. It's gonna get shooken up a little bit.
Scott, you said something pretty interesting that I want our listeners to get a little more depth on. You talked about the length of days. We've never ever talked about that in detail on this show. I agree. I think things change. Can you explain it from your perspective? You're the expert on this.
That's what tells all the animals and plants and everything what time of year it is. It's how long the day is. It's not about individual weather patterns of 3 or 4 days. I mean, just last week we were up in the 70s, with the water temperature, week before last. And then over the weekend, late last week, it was down to 56, 57, 58. I mean, it's swinging just really wild this year. I mean, I've seen it in the 70s 2 or 3 different times through January and February, which is just unheard of. I mean, that's late March temperatures. So it's hard to say how they're going to react to it, but everything works off the cycle of daylight, how long the days are, and that's what tells everything what time of year it is and what they're supposed to be doing.
Can we expect more skittish behavior, Caleb? Because as I mentioned, I've been on something of a roll lately, but Sunday was absolute slump for me. Does the fluctuation of the water temp, the fluctuation of the temperature, does that make them more skittish right now? And what do you do?
I don't think it makes them more skittish. I think that it affects their patterns and them being where they're supposed to be and acting how they're supposed to act. Now,
yeah, that's kind of more what I meant. Like their behavior is a better word. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I was expecting, because we've been fishing shallow ledges next to deep drop-offs, and whenever this warm stuff happened the last couple of days, I was expecting the fish to be floating up high in the water column, about lunch, 1, 2, 3 o'clock every day. And we saw 2 floaters in 3 days, and we were on the water about 27 hours in those 3 days. And so while they're supposed to be doing that, they weren't doing that. Why? Who knows? There were plenty of fish in the area. There's no doubt about it. But I think that's what Scott's talking about when them being off kilter is just not acting like we think they're supposed to, right?
How's that skiff life working, man?
Pretty good.
You look a little sore.
Man, you ought to see a sunburn on top of my feet because I don't wear shoes no more.
You've gone full Scott.
Oh, and would you believe it? One of those guys had the audacity to let a fish touch my deck. And I tell you what, no, actually, they had the fish. I was like, they were trying to hang it off the side of the boat, and they're big fish. I was like, man, put that thing on the deck. You can get somebody hurt around here. But I like the skiff. Man, we took it out. I took it out last Wednesday. Me and another a guide over here that I'm friends with. It was blowing about 25 across the bow. And we crossed some big bodies of water. Now, don't get me wrong. We got wet because the water sprays out and then the wind brings it back across. But it's a capable stinking boat. And even poling in the high
share
winds,
for those who don't know.
It's a Sabine skiff. Call Brian. Tell him I sent you. But before you tell him I sent you, everything he suggests, tell him you don't want that and come up with your own idea first. And don't go by what he wants to do. And then after that, tell him I sent you. Brian, I think a conversation Brian and I had, Brian told me, this isn't the first boat I've built. And I said, well, Brian, this isn't the first boat I've driven. And that's pretty well how our entire process went.
All right, Scott, I know you took out that general. I'm sorry, Caleb, you got more?
No, I'd just say he's an engineer and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he does. And you know how engineers overthink.
Trust me.
Yeah. Scott, you took out that general. Fair is fair. Let's hear about that one.
Yep. It's doing everything that they advertised. I mean, I took it out. I just wanted to run it just to, play around a little bit and get familiar with it before I start running any trips on it. And what the hell? I don't even remember what day it was. It was Sunday. It was Sunday. No, it was Monday. Take it back. It was Monday. Hell, I don't know. All the days run together. But yeah, life of a fishing guide, man.
Was it the day that you answered my call or the day you screened my call? Because I can tell you which day it was.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, there wasn't a whole lot of people on the water, so I took off, went out, and I was just going to run it up down the intercoastal. And the weather was nice. It was slick. I said, hell, I'm going to go to the beachfront. I hadn't been out there in a while. I'm going to go poke around. So I took it out through the jetties and ran it down to Bascavallo and sat out there. You're talking about otters surfing. I was watching dolphins surf. There was whole pods of dolphins that were surfing together as families. It was cool as hell. I just sat
Tell
out
them about
there.
the upside down one.
Yeah, there was one that kept flipping upside down and looking at the other ones. He would surf just in front of them. And he was surfing upside down, looking backwards.
And that was a show off.
Yeah. And the other ones were just coming right along with him. Anyway, I hung out there, and then Stephen Plant gave me a buzz and wanted to look at the boat. So I ran it back inside and went all the way down the Intercoastal to Charlie's and hung out at Steve's for a while and then ran it back. But I messed around with it, not real shallow water, but just sitting and then taking off with the jack plate sitting at different heights.
Yeah.
Takes off pretty much the same, no matter whether it's jacked all the way up. And I mean, when it's jacked all the way up, the props are almost touching the top of the water.
Yeah.
And took off flat, smooth. And within a boat length, it was up and going. Pretty impressive.
That's a lesson right there for our listeners too. When you're breaking in a boat and learning. Yeah. By the way, it's the Freedom General, 26 foot.
Yep.
And I was talking with Chet. I know you have. They're taking orders on that, which is kind of cool because it's going to be a game changer. I'm really happy for him, man. I know you've dealt with him a lot. He's such a good dude, and took a real risk. I mean, let's think about that. I mean, he had a really good thing going with the Chiquita and the Patriot and the Warrior, like I have, and he put all this money in. The plug and the design, and I've seen his computer modules and everything else. I mean, that's a big investment, and it's going to pay off. That's a big time boat, and good for Chet. Just a shout out, man, because I don't know if I could take that risk.
Yeah, he's been working on it a year and a half, good solid year and a half, and I've got the first one, and hull number one, and everybody keeps asking how fast. It's got a 350 Suzuki on it with the twin props, counter rotating twin props. And I was playing around with it, and I got it up around 56, 57, somewhere around there in the Intercoastal, just messing around. It didn't feel like I trimmed it out just exactly right, but I was playing with the jack plate and trim, and it's like flying a little airplane or something.
Man, I'm still messing
trying
with
to get everything.
In different things. I've had it for year and a half now, a little over a year. I'm still messing with different environments on mine. You're always learning on that.
Yeah, they told me when they were running it, they got it to like 62, 63. But I didn't quite get it there. I think I need to tweak a couple of things just a little bit. But I was dropping the plate all the way down and seeing how much drag it had, with the jack plate all the way down and trimmed way up, where it was throwing a rooster tail. I was screwing around, just playing with it. But it's smooth, good running. Jumped a few wakes, in the Intercoastal with some other boats. In fact, a crew boat came by, and I took it across those waves pretty good. And it likes to run about between 45 and 50 miles an hour. That's where.
Is that where what are you cruising at? You cruising faster now?
Yeah, it feels just right at about 47, 48 miles an hour.
Damn.
And that's running about 5,000 RPMs, give or take.
Yeah.
And that's where it felt the best. It felt the smoothest, and I don't know. We'll see. Got a little more playing to do.
Caleb, could you gotten that thing to 62?
I think I'll get 64 out of it.
Everybody lean forward.
Scott's only using one of those props. You got to use both of them.
Exactly. Hey, I want to talk about something that the listener brought up, and we're going to get to your questions. But I do want to mention fishing show coming up, and real good friends of the podcast, real good friends of our listeners. A couple of questions here for you too, Scott. One question for sure. We've got Knock and Tail and Wade Right. They will be at the fishing show. Ask them about the Bite Me 20 promo. You get 20% off. You can also go to mycoast.doors.com for the Knock and Tail lures. I've been throwing the brand. Oh yeah, I got some news on that. He gave me a bag of the new Rogue bait that he's going to have for the first time for sale at the fishing show. And as I said, I threw it Sunday, had a real tough time. Of course, I was blaming the bait and switched it back around, put that Rogue back on, caught a couple of little trout. So it works. It looks like it's a great looking bait. You'll see it at the fishing show. And then of course, Wade Wright has the Bite Me 20 combo as well. Coastalfishinggear.com. If you want to do it online, 20% off. Ask them about that. I guarantee you're going to get some good deals at the fishing show. Scott, Texter just texted me on my bat phone here, said, hey, I'm listening, but ask Scott, when are they going to have more Bite Me hats in stock? I haven't brought that up in a long time. You can get them, you get everything at scottnollphotography.com. What's the latest? I haven't seen the stock. I know Camille does it. How are we on hats, and how are we in terms of getting some more of them for our listeners?
Yeah, that's not in my realm of.
I'll text
things to
I'll
do.
text Camille. I'll text Camille right now.
Text Camille. Text the boss. I mean,
Yeah.
she knows, she keeps up with it. I just know there's a closet in there that's got a bunch of stuff in it. And then she packs stuff up every now and then, and I run it to the post office for her.
I'll text her right now.
That's pretty
won't have
much
your answer.
my contribution to it is going to the
post office.
Yep, pretty much.
All right, Caleb. Last fall, from a listener, Caleb referenced a metal mount for trophy fish, and it's a good story. His youngest son, 9 years old, finally caught a big bull red, took some pictures, released it, and he wants a mount for his room. So metal mounts, flesh mounts, fiberglass mounts. First of all, do you have the answer to that, Caleb, for our listener?
I do. I wasn't talking about a mount. I was talking about that I have fish mounted in my house, and now my go-to is getting a good picture of the fish and having it put on the metal piece, like make it a metal picture to hang on the wall, because the depth of field on it's really good. It just looks nice, and the wife doesn't seem to care as much. As far as mounts, New Wave Taxidermy is the only place I would ever send anyone.
Scott, metal, flesh, or fiberglass?
Fiberglass.
And I'm with you.
If you're doing photos, yes, the metal, either metal. There's metal, acrylic, and glass. They're actually printing on glass now, and it just gives them so much depth. I mean, it makes them almost look three-dimensional. My Bobcat photo that I have hanging in my house, I did it on the aluminum, and it looks a lot. Has a live feel about it. As far as the mounting go, yeah, New Wave over there, they're fantastic. Now, if you want to get an otter mounted or some other mammal, Creative Feathers down in Lamarck, Connie Mack, he does all my deer. He did my pig. Yeah, he's an artist with the mammals. The fish, Connie does a great job with fish. Don't get me wrong, but the ones that come out of New Wave are unbelievable. They look like they should be dripping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this fish right here above my head on the live, that's a New Wave. Now it's going to take a while, but it's worth it. They have people coming in, Scott, from everywhere. I think that one I caught in 2019. I got it in Christmas of 2020. Actually, right after that. But they're gorgeous. I'm not going to move the camera so you can see it better, but it's as real can get. Those guys do a great job. Unpaid advertisement, by the way.
Yeah, Buddy Kirkart, he's on our group page. And his dad's him and his dad on New Wave, and he's on there all the time if you got a question for him.
All right, let's get to some strategies here. Also, a listener here, Caleb, I'm going to start with you. I think they're both these answers can work, but I'd like for you to explain. And this is a good story too. I just wanted to share this. So we have listeners all over the country, as you guys know. Your podcast inspired my wife and I to drive from Montana to Port O'Connor. Scott, you need to reach out to this cat. I bet you he'd love meeting you for a couple of weeks of fishing. We'll have a small boat. Sheltered shorelines and marshes is what they're looking for. If the wind gets rowdy, and I like that term, we plan on wave fishing or surf fishing. What are the favorable conditions, wind for Port Aransas, and I'm guessing Port O'Connor? Here's the question, though. Is it better if the wind is blowing towards the shoreline or away from the shore? And he said in the surf, but I think we can talk about both bay and surf, Caleb, because that's an age-old question. We have addressed it in the past, but I think you probably have a good beat on this. Wade into the shore or away from the shore?
John, I think my mic isn't working. Scott, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, damn it.
He knew it was working, by the way, folks. He just didn't want to answer the question.
It's a loaded question. It's tough.
It's both. Both answers are right, can be right.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So break it down.
Oh, you want me to
Why do you go to a windblown shoreline? Why do you go to the other side?
It's if the wind is blowing into a shoreline enough that it's moving bait and everything into it and maybe stirring it up a little bit where it isn't crystal clear, like if you're in port A or POC, then it can be a good thing to fish. If it's blowing so hard that it's got to stir it up, then you want to go to the shoreline that the wind isn't hitting, right? If you're in a small boat like they're going to be, I would suggest you be on a shoreline that the wind isn't hitting. But when they get here, it's going to be blowing probably from the south, and they're going to have to cross all that stuff to get to the protected shoreline, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the surf, I like it blowing away from the beach. I want a north wind knocking it down to make it better. But it's just there's not a right answer or a wrong answer to any of it.
But you just explained, some of the instances that might kind of influence that decision. What are your thoughts, Scott?
Same thing. I like some coves, the back end of some coves when the wind's blowing into them pretty good, and stacks some bait fish up in there, and it stacks a little water in it. It might be a little off color. You might need to throw something that makes some noise, a little popping cork with a soft plastic under it or gulp or something. We did that a lot in tournaments back when I fished the redfish tournaments. I'd prefer to go to a calm shoreline. If the fish are there, that's where I'm going to go. Just because it's easier. It's more pleasurable. You're not battling constantly. Fishing those windy shorelines is tough. Even with a trolling motor, you're just constantly working the trolling motor and trying to stay back a little bit so you're not running over the fish, and it's trying to push you on top of them. As far as the surf goes, if you're in a boat, yes, the north wind's nice for it to knock it down, but if you're going to just wade out from the beach, typically our best surf is with a light southeast, less than 10 miles an hour. That brings in the cleaner water and puts nice clear water up onto the beach, onto the first, second gut, and that's when the trout go off. But most of the time, this time of year, you're going to catch some north wind and it'll knock it down. And down that far, the surf stays pretty clean. If you're further up the coast, Galveston area, the one you don't want to see is that southwest. If the southwest kicks up, like it's blowing out there right now, it just immediately dirties everything up.
Yeah.
And the surf is just a mud bath up there.
Caleb, my answer whenever I'm asked about this is, what's your goal? What are you trying to catch and who are you with? Scott touched on it, and I'm glad he did, but I want to get your thoughts. If my goal is, it depends on some of the other conditions, but if my goal, all things being equal, is the trout, the fish, I'll go more to the windblown shoreline, some transition areas, etc. If my goal is fish, let's catch some fish. Let's put some people on some fish. Let's get the kids, something. To me, my answer to him would be, what's your goal? And I want to get your thoughts on that.
If my goal is to drive from Montana and come down here, I would go to the protected side. I would find, some sort of point, some sort of creek, ditch, channel, anything that's got water moving in. I'd hang out, enjoy myself, be comfortable, throw stuff into some moving water and see what happens. That would be my goal there. As far as catching the fish or a number of fish, it goes back to, there's not a right or a wrong answer. If you are completely striking out in the protected side and things aren't really jiving, and you go to the windy side and see bait bouncing around, then it's time to fish it. It's such a moving target in that regard, right? It's we've been over here when we have that southwest wind Scott's talking about, and it destroyed everything yesterday, but we were still able to find redfish tailing up on the edges right, on that windy side. But the day before, the clean side, the protected side, is where we found fish at. So they both work.
Yeah. Scott, what about like when you're going into some bayous, back lakes, some areas that are going to be shallow? You're either in your skiff or in your boat. Would you want the wind blowing in or out more often? I know you can catch them, they're depending on the water clarity, etc. But generally speaking, when you're in one of those areas, what are you looking at in terms of wind?
I typically try to figure out how to get the wind behind me so I can pole with it. that's the basic answer. But,
well, aside from that, exactly.
But in those back lakes, you're twisting and turning so much, going down those little creeks and little cuts in between the lakes, and then you're circling around a lake. You're fishing both sides of it. I'll usually try to figure out which side I think the fish are going to be on. Most of my lakes have one side's better than the other. Typically, traditionally it's better on one side based on the grass beds or oyster or whatever is in that lake. And so I will try to fish that in such a way that I can ease into it. And I'm trying, if it's blowing hard, I'm going to try to go ahead and go across the lake and go into it and just fight the wind and deal with it. Because I know that if I go the other way and I'm going downwind, we're just going to do a drive-by on it.
Yeah.
On the good spots. With a pole and skiff, I can hold, and even with a trolling motor, I can hold into the wind better than I can go. And trying to control a boat going downwind is tough. So back lakes and stuff, man, it all depends on what kind of lake I'm looking at and how many bayous I've got to deal with, and how many little cuts I've got. And if this is a lake that has specific target spots, like oysters and scattered grass. But if it's a lake that's a solid grass bed or a solid sand flat, I may just go ahead and go downwind and just tell the guys, hey, be ready. You're not going to get more than one shot at them. We're going to be going pretty quick going down through here.
Caleb, you have that look on your face like you definitely want to add something to this. You got some thoughts.
He just reliving my life for the last 3 days. You have no idea how fast I can pull with 25 miles an hour wind behind me. And I did have to, and there was times I had to turn around and go into it. There's a redfish over here that we have named Rodney from the movie Super Troopers because he's just big and obnoxious. And we chased him upwind for a solid hour the other day.
And
it's Rodney's still out there, man. Rodney's still out there. But I'm gonna tell you what, he sticks his tail out of the water. That thing has to be like 8 or 10 inches tall, and we want to. Well, Rodney evaded us twice on Sunday, and we wanted to see Rodney real bad.
Real bad. Let me ask you this, Caleb. When you have a wind, and I'm talking about like a real wind, not necessarily 30, but blowing pretty good. Does it affect how far back you go in some of these lakes, some of these little angles and little other areas, or does it not?
If it's a headwind, I'm not going very far on that lake at all. If it's behind me, no, not really, because this little old boat I have, I can putt in 4 inches of water, and so I can fish it out and then putt back out of it. But I mean, the only thing that's really a deciding factor for me is how tough is it going to be to get back out of here.
Yeah, that's a big factor.
When you're polling 9 hours in a day, you have to kind of pace yourself to some regard. The first thing I did on, I want to say Saturday, I think it was Saturday morning. The first thing I did was it's real strong currents over here versus Texas. And I let a current shove my boat up onto this little flat. I thought it was going to be a little point. Like, that's no big deal. And so me and our buddies are in the boat there, and I start pushing us out of it. And it doesn't sound that bad, except the mud, in best case scenario over here, is 1.5 feet deep. So you push and you get your momentum going, and then you pop the pole back out, it stops everything. And I think it went for like 60 yards. This is first thing in the morning. I was like, this is not good. I used a lot of gas on that. I could have just turned it around and backed it right back down the channel. I'm like, now I'll hop across this real quick. There's no hopping across anything real quick. And where I'm going to fish Thursday, I went there last week with a buddy, and the mud is at least 15 foot deep. It's deeper, but I ran out of pole to check it. It's incredible.
You're down bending over off the platform.
I'm telling you, I could have 5 feet of push pole sticking out of the water. And Scott, I call it Scott. He's like, yeah, rookie. No, bullshit. No, it's that soft. It is raining in hell right now because I'm punching holes in the ceiling.
Scott, I'm sensing a trend from Caleb right now, and I know you've heard the same thing. Oh, I'm sore. Oh, the mud is thick. Oh, it's hard pushing against the wind.
Oh, I got them cannons, dog.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's not what we're hearing. That's not what we're hearing, Scott. All of a sudden, although all that grief that he gave you all these years, what do they call about chickens coming back to roost and all that stuff?
Yep, he's gaining his experience. That's about all I can say.
That's how Scott can hold up those 12-foot beams, man.
That's right. I don't ever intend to hold up a 12-foot beam by myself. I went and worked with Scott's daughter one time, and I watched her throw 10-footers over her shoulder, walk around the house, and then chuck them over the top of a dump trailer that's probably 8 feet off the ground. This is a genetic thing. This is not Scott. This is something the Knowles are dispositioned to.
You reminded me when you were speaking about Scott's daughter. We've got to mention what Camille is doing on Memorial Day. Scott, I joined. I posted it on the group page, and certainly it's more than a worthwhile cause. And it's going to be on Memorial Day. Give us some more details on that, or at least what you got.
It's called Carry the Load. They've been doing it for several years. And you pick out somebody that you know that was wounded, killed in action, just needs some help. And you're carrying their load. And it's a symbolic walk, and do it for charity. And a lot of the money goes to the charity she works for is Heroes on the Water. And we take wounded vets out kayak fishing. Dean's real involved in it, and just a really good organization. And the whole premise behind it is, we got your back. We're here for you. So the guys don't feel like they're alone and fighting it on their own.
Memorial Day, carrytheload.org. Although I would recommend going to the group page. I shared Camille's link. I'm on her team, so to speak. I don't know how much I'm going to walk, but I did join. And she hasn't texted me back yet. So
I'm kind of panicking right now.
Why is that?
Well, I saw that she invited me to it. And so I thought that I donated some money. Did I pledge to walk a bunch, and that's how much money per
yeah, you did.
That I got to do?
I'll walk with you.
I've never been so panicking in my life because neither one of y'all have said anything about you can go to this link and make a donation. So I'm feeling like I'm the guy that said $100, and then there's going to be some kid that's going to walk 600 miles, and I have to give him $100 a mile because I didn't know anything about this walking part.
Yeah, you didn't hear about that. That's part of it. So you might.
I know she loved it. Is this why?
That's why.
Am I ever going to financially recover from this?
No, you're not. That's why I just did a flat number. Carry the load. It's a movement to bring back the meaning of Memorial Day. It's really, really cool. I'm planning on walking. I don't think right now I don't have any plans on Memorial Day. It's a little bit ways out, but I'll go out there. Scott, you going to walk?
Yeah, she wants to get the Bite Me crew.
Yeah.
She wants a lot of participation. They've been doing it for several years, and it's been growing. The whole movement's been growing. But yeah, it's about bringing back Memorial Day. For what it really is. It's not just all barbecues and a day off. It's time to think about what's been given up for us.
Yeah, no question. All right, a couple more topics here, and then what would Scott do? What would Caleb do? Reminder. Caleb has allstateroofs.com. He does a terrific job. Just ask some other Bite Me listeners who have taken who've all these storms and everything, who've had their roofs done, redone, repaired, whatever. And San Antonio, we have so many listeners in San Antonio. RSL Roofing and Ironworks. Book a job with Roger and the guys over there. $5,000 plus, and he's gonna and then book a trip with our guys, Scott, Caleb. Dean, and he'll take care of their tip. So that's another good thing for all our listeners to be a part of. Put it in your mind next time you need, or if you know somebody that needs a roof, with Caleb here in the greater Houston area and RSL Roofing in San Antonio. All right, so this is one, again, every once in a while we'll rehash a topic with a different twist on it. But I thought this was a good one because we did get a question on it from our listeners, one of our listeners. Just curious. He's just curious when and where and do you play music in your boat while fishing? And to me, that was the key term right there. Even with the volume down, and why would you not? Scott, I think you're with me, and I normally just toss it to you guys, but I listen to music when I'm in the ditch, when I'm in the intercoastal, when I'm heading home, or if I'm soaking bait, I'll put it on low. Otherwise, I don't listen to music. I'm old school. I like the peace of just being out on the water, and I also think it affects the fishing, Scott.
Yeah, I don't play it while we're fishing, but when I was out running the General, I brought my little portable boom box with me, and I had my Ray Wiley Hubbard going. So I was just out there cruising around on the beachfront by myself with stereo going. So yeah, I mean, depends on what you're doing. If you're really serious fishing, wanting to get out there and do that, yeah, it's probably not a good idea. Vibrations go through the boat into the water, and might affect the fishing. I don't know. And like I said, out there for the peace and quiet of it. So if you are playing your music, don't play it so damn loud. I mean, that one kills me, man. I'll be out there polling, and some guys coming blasting past me with some, like Caleb and his Ice Baby and stuff. They just want to
Ice Baby. They want 1985.
It's like they want everybody to know what they're listening to, and I don't need to listen to their music,
I want you to feel what I'm listening to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. A little Machine Gun Kelly.
I got 4 tickets to the rodeo. Y'all can suck it.
Yeah.
Machine Gun Kelly's playing at the rodeo.
I got I'm gonna get some tickets for and I'm not a huge fan, but my wife is, which is weird. She's kind of an earthy hippie kind of girl. And she'll listen to Dixie Chicks and Elton John, and but she loves Guns N' Roses. And so I don't know where it came from. So I'm going to get her some Guns N' Roses tickets, but don't play your Guns N' Roses too loud.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that, because I was thinking, well, Machine Gun Kelly is also an earthy hippie kind of girl.
Yeah, no question. We're gonna get to some questions here on the live feed now. So I'm just gonna shoot them up at you guys, rapid fire, so to speak. But the first one is about age-old question. Foster, I'm not blaming you because everybody has the same question, Foster. Hey guys, curious about the best. This is a little bit of a twist on it. Caleb, curious about the best soft plastics and flies to use in the surf. I'll just toss it to you because I'm curious on your answer. I have my preferences, of course.
A plastic that's white, shiny, glittery, looks like a flashy fish. I don't care what brand it is. I really don't care if it's a paddle tail or a rat tail. Just something that flashes and looks like the other things in that surf. And same goes for a fly.
Scott, that's kind of what I was going to say. For some reason, I like lighter colors in the surf. Am I wrong?
No, you typically, when we're fishing the surf, we're fishing cleaner water. That's the whole reason to go to the surf, is when the water's clear. And if you watch the bait fish, you can't really see the bait fish. All you see is flashes. And so you're trying to mimic that. And something that's flashy. If you're throwing a top water, I like to throw a chrome. That's one of the only times I really throw a chrome top water, is out in the surf. On our flies, I'm typically throwing little bait fish flies that have a lot of sparkle to it, real flashy. You want the perception of bait fish more so than the solid, the darker colors where they're getting a full silhouette. You just want that flash just to get their attention, and they'll hit it from a longer distance. That's been my experience in the surf, is fish will come from a further distance out there than they do in the bays.
How much do you throw a fly on the surf? I don't know if we've ever talked about that.
I've done a good bit. Chandelier Islands, I actually caught my biggest trout in the surf over there on the walking, parked the skiff on the backside of the island, walked across, and the bull reds were in the surf. And I was walking down the beach, standing on dry sand, casting the bull reds that were in the first gut and having a blast. And I had 3 big ones coming down the gut and say they're, got these big shadows coming at me. And I threw my fly out there in front of them. Something silver flashed in front of it and then stole it away from them. I thought it was a damn Spanish mackerel or something. Next thing I know, there's a big old head shake, like 27, 28-inch trout, but biggest one I ever got on fly. Pure accident. Wish I could say I was sight casting that fish.
You were.
I wasn't.
I'll say it. I'll say it. And then we got this from Slow Ride Guide, a reference to a earlier conversation about I'll call and text Caleb, but he doesn't do it back. Captain Dean says everybody calls me, and to which I responded, "Oh, I'm gonna call you. Don't worry about that." It's funny because he is so helpful, Captain Dean. I mean, he's joined us on the show a lot, but I've been puttering around a little bit, messing with going down to Aransas Pass a lot more. I've fished Copano a lot down there, but I want to get into Aransas Pass. Man, he is so helpful with just techniques and where he's going and where to navigate. And that's, Caleb, that's the biggest thing too when you're getting into some new waters, the navigation, and not just so you don't bang up your boat, but kind of the courtesy thing, because there's flats everywhere down there. And sometimes, you'll be cutting across a flat, not realizing that there's 3 other boats that are either drifting or about to fish, your area. You got to find someone, man. You got to find someone that's going to be able to help you. Like, okay, this is how we do it here. And every bay system has its own little quirks and habits that people do.
It never hurts to get some local knowledge. And every bay system has different set of rules to get along with everybody.
Right.
You can get a lot closer to somebody in Port O'Connor without getting yelled at than you can in Matagorda. And it's that way all over the place. In Galveston, you're talking about listening to the radio. You don't have to, because the guy next to you is listening to it, and you can damn near reach it to change it. And that's not a problem over there. So there's different rules all over the place, and it doesn't hurt to get access to those rules.
Yeah, that's a good point, Scott. You've mentioned this occasionally here, like, because you fished everywhere, like Caleb. But I'm telling you, there are little quirks. Like, I go down to Aransas Pass, and I just, cut across a certain area, which my boat will do, but it might not be how they do it there. You know what I mean?
Right. And I went and fished Florida a while back and went on vacation over there around Atchafalaya. And there's a big sandbar over there that's it's the tarpon place. I mean, it's like there was a actual little movie that came out about it and called Location X. And through some other people, I figured out where Location X was. And then once I got out on the water, it wasn't hard to find because there was like 8-9 boats over there all lined up. But it's this long sandbar that kind of makes a comma, and everybody's stationed up. It's a weird way of fishing for what we do, but the tarpon just run down the edge of that sandbar, and everybody just finds their spot and lines up. And I could tell it was some guides, and there was a couple of them I'd been warned about from other friends that said, "Don't get anywhere near this guy. And
I
don't
know
get
what's
anywhere
coming.
near this
Yeah,
guy."
I know what's coming.
And so I just sat back. That first morning I went out there and I found it. I just sat back about 100, 150 yards and just watched how they set up and how they were doing things. And then I came in on my trolling motor after sitting out there for a long time, found me an opening when one of the other boats left, and just puttered in with my trolling motor and got set up, put a power pole down. And before I fished it like 3 or 4 days in a row. And at one point, the guide over there, who is like hates everybody, he and I were chatting, and he actually called me in. He said, "Hey, you might want to move a little closer to me. Why don't you come on in over here, Tex?" And he started hollering at me, Tex, all the time, and I was calling out fish to him. It's like being in a dove field. You got doves flying, and they're not in your range, but they're in their range. So you holler, "Hey, you got birds coming from the left." Well, I did that with him a couple of times the way the sun was set up, he couldn't see some fish that were coming right at him. And I hollered over to him, said, "Hey man, you got 3 of them coming at 2:00." And before long, he was calling out fish to me. And the last day that I was there, he pulled up next to me and he said, "Hey man, I'm going to go check another spot. Why don't you move over there where I was? That's where they're moving to, that's where they're going to move through here in a little bit on this tide." And we just chatted it up, and he handed me his card and I handed him my card. And he said, "Man, I really appreciate the way you came in that first day." So they were watching. They knew I was,
for sure.
Knew I was different, knew I was from somewhere else, but they were paying real close attention to how I handled myself.
Yeah.
And that's common in a lot of places. Jetty fishing, it's a real big deal with jetty fishing. How you come in on everybody, the locals, the guys who fish it every day. If you just barge right in, you're not going to get a real warm welcome. But if you kind of ease around, see what they're doing, and try to do the same thing, then you'll be welcomed in a little bit better.
My favorite story of this is way back in the day when I first started fishing Sabine. And you guys know this, maybe some of our listeners don't. There's an oyster flat on Sabine Lake where people drift and cast backwards. Basically, they cast into the wind, let some line out, and they drift and they let the lure bounce over the shell. You're fishing backwards, and meanwhile I was drifting and fishing like I do, when I'm drifting. And all of a sudden I was with Pat Gardner's dad, Tommy, my buddy Tommy Gardner, and we look at each other, and he said it first. He goes, "Are all those boats backwards fishing?" I was like, kind of looks like it. I mean, you guys have seen this, I'm sure, but they
call it dredging.
Yeah. And I'd never seen it before in my life. This was years and years ago. And I'm like, how are they going to catch fish like that? They're casting into the wind, letting more line out, and the boat is going over the fish, and the lure is bouncing on the oyster. And I'll be dog, man. I mean, they were just wailing on some fish, and we weren't catching squat. So I was like,
they were throwing croaker, John.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't. They were absolutely not.
In Galveston, they'll do that. They'll turn around backwards and throw croaker out, and they're just hopping the croaker and letting the drift of the boat move it. Because if you cast it forward, the wind blows and makes a train wreck.
Yeah.
I lived this in like 2015 or something in Galveston. The same thing. I was like, what are these people doing? You can only cast like 10 feet. Well, and then I noticed they never cast. They cast once every 10 minutes.
Yeah, I was blown away. And of course we turned around, we restarted where we started the first time, and we're like casting into the wind, letting out a little bit of line, and boom, 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 we start catching fish. I'm like, I'll be damned. So the next time, ever since then, when I would fish that area and some numbskull would start doing what I did, like, look at that guy. I'd just be making fun of him like they did me.
What an idiot.
What a dummy. Why is he fishing that way? Conventional. That's so missionary. All right. So let's get to what would Scott do and what would Caleb do. Scott, I'm looking at this thing, man, and temperatures we mentioned this earlier, but temperatures high. Got a lot of southeast wind coming in consistently. I looked at Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Southeast, southeast, and the temperatures are going to be higher. I have a hunch we're going to get a lot of people out on the water, so help us out here, Scott.
Yeah, I think the tides are going to come on up. They're typically low this time of year, but I think they're going to get a little higher than they should be. They're still low though. When I looked at it yesterday, the tide was way out. I drove into Port Lavaca yesterday, and everything I crossed over was just mud flats. But I think with the southeast consistently, and especially tomorrow morning,
yeah, I think the water's coming up a little bit.
Good Lord, tomorrow morning, straight south, 26 gusting to 41 at daylight.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, that's gonna push some water, man. So we're gonna get that warmer Gulf water pushing in. So the water temperature is not gonna drop. It's gonna be up in the 70s. Man, I'd have to think that things should kick off. If it being consistent, like last week, it went up and down and up and down. This week, it's more consistent and staying warm. So I would think the flats are going to pick up. We're going to get a lot of water, a lot of new water blowing in, and I would get up into some back lakes and fish shorelines up against the grass, up against the mangroves, and see what's going on up there. Watch for the bait fish, and I would imagine the bait fish are going to be kicking. So whatever's happening with the bait, just started looking for that, and I'd throw topwaters right up against the bank. Honestly, that'd probably be my go-to.
Yeah, Caleb. The first thing I thought of. Go ahead.
He almost gave me something left to say. He almost did. I was gonna say that I think you could get your early topwater itch taken care of this weekend. And he was going through it like warm flats, warm backlegs. I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, that can't say that. I'm like, ooh, topwater. It's like lasting.
Well, let me add this and see if you agree, Caleb. So, because I want you to participate, and you need that participation trophy. One thing that I thought of is all those oyster reefs that have been exposed with the water so low, all those islands that have been exposed with the water so low. The water's going to blow in, and all that little stuff that's on top of those islands is going to bring a bunch of bait. And this has always been one of my go-tos after an event like this, where it blows out for several days, it's exposed, it's heat. There's been a lot of heat in the water. I'm thinking of 2 islands in particular where we like to fish that I guarantee you I'm going to start there, because once it gets covered back with water, all that stuff starts to churn, and the bait fish come. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Go throw a topwater on top of it.
Yeah. You're really high on the topwater this weekend.
I was pumped, man. Hey, more importantly, I need clarification.
Yeah.
So if myself or listeners or people, I think our chat's broken because nobody's saying anything on my screen in 30 minutes, which is not normal.
Yeah, that is interesting because we've had a lot of listeners.
Yeah, comment session just quit.
I think it's broke. If Dean hadn't said anything, it just broke.
Yeah.
But so for listeners, we can go to the Camille's link on Bite Me and just donate some money in good faith. And like, if you're not going to be here for Memorial Day, you don't have to run around, go run a race or anything. You can just help out in that way. Am I right?
As far as I know,
you're absolutely right. Yeah,
you're going to need to sell a couple of roofs to pay for all yours.
Man, I'm telling you, if I pledge $50 a mile, this is a problem.
Why would I not be surprised if you did?
If this happens to anybody, it's this guy, right? and like, as soon as I posted it, Camille like loved it and everything. I was like, oh, that's nice. But then
my gosh, she's going to donate $17,000.
But there again, Camille knows me well enough. She knows that I'm just a broke fisherman. She'd have called me up and been like, dude, you screwed up.
Yeah, what are you doing? We need the money. We're not breaking you.
I'm looking at this, and there's just no excuse. It's not broken. Our followers just don't appreciate what we do for free every Tuesday.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I guess Dean, he stepped outside or something, because he's usually just constant.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to call Dean out on this.
I'm calling him out. I'm calling out everybody. Park off all of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Scott
all right, boys.
Hodge, he's chatty Cathy, and then all of a sudden he's gone.
Now the comments are coming in.
Yeah.
How about that? Now the comments are coming in.
You pay attention to us.
Yeah, pay attention in class. Come on.
Not that Caleb's needy or anything, but pay attention to me. All right, boys.
I'm just saying a little appreciation would be nice.
How many more days are you going to be in Louisiana?
I'm coming home Friday morning. My Cade's birthday is Friday. He has a baseball tournament Friday, and then for his birthday, we're inviting over a bunch of baseball players and having a wiffle ball game. I got to go build a wiffle ball field Saturday morning in my house, and then Sunday we've got tournament play again. You
got this. All right, guys. Sure appreciate you guys listening. Don't forget ScottKnollPhotography.com, Airwaves, Captain Caleb TV, and of course AllStateRoofs.com in the greater Houston area. He'll take care of you. Scott is working on his house. I know you're busting your butt. I'm very impressed. I've given you a hard time, but that's quite the project. Do you have a final date, goal, or anything? No, I'm just doing it, doing the thing, man. As time allows, I get out there and do it. All right, got a little guiding to do this week, so it'll be kind of slowing down. All right. That's fantastic with comments and certainly everything else. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. We'll talk to you next week. Until then, catch them up. And we will see you next time.
I like how he plays the music like we are done. No more stories.
Yeah, just quit talking.
Right in the middle of your sentence. Bam.
That's a sign, boys. That's a sign.
Hey,
All right, man.
Could we get a world famous sports commentator out to accommodate the old wiffle ball game?
Like
It's for
me?
the children. Yeah.
When is it? Don't
It's
bring
Saturday.
Don't
I'll
say
set
it's
up a
for
PA,
the
everything.
children.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
if you
What's the
say
matter
it's for
with
the
you?
children, he's just not going to do it. I mean, he'll take the boat away from them.
I mean, he's gonna have to answer to St. Peter at some time. He's gonna need to say, "But I did this too."
Hey, St. Peter has a long list on me. St. Peter has got a long list. All right, let me end the live broadcast here.
Yeah, before we say something.